very important skill in master play today is the art of flexible thinking. Let's have a look at a game now where flexible thinking is paramount. Let's take a look at the game Larsen versus Suber. That's Palmer's 1982. I think Larsen and Suber are two of the most inventive grandmasters that I know. Certainly very strong original thinkers. And the opening was an interesting one. To start off with, we have the English opening by White, and Black counters with a system known as the hedgehog system. Black plays very modestly in the opening. White just takes the centre. Both sides castle, as you will see all the time in Master Chess. And Black sets up this hedgehog formation. And here we go with Queen C7. Now the hallmark of the hedgehog setup is flexibility. Black has constructed a flexible pawn structure. His pawns stand on the third rank, ready to move forward as and when necessary. And you'll note that there's no entry squares for the white pieces in this position. White's got to create something, if you like. Now flexibility is very much a modern method of play. Most top players like to keep their position as flexible as possible, to keep as many options open as they possibly can. Here, Black may have to defend for a while, but he's ready to strike back if White oversteps the mark, and that's why this system is known as the hedgehog system. If anything attacks the hedgehog system, you're bound to run aground. Well, for the moment, Larsen doesn't see any weak spot in the Black camp, and this just carries on developing. Okay, Black plays rook to the half-open file, and the other rook comes into the centre, and Black just patiently carries on, fortifying the position, waiting for an opening. G4 and now pawn to H6. Now what an extraordinary position that is. 6 black pawns on the third rank. White has more space and feels he ought to be going somewhere, but the problem is there's no real weak point in Black's position for him to latch onto. Now let's try and assess the position using our yardsticks, our basic yardsticks. Who has the better king position? Well, I'm going to argue that Black's king is safer than White's king in this position, because White has been lured into advancing the pawns around his king. There's a bit of fresh air there around the White king that I'd quite like to somehow exploit if I could. The balance of materials level. The pawn structure, well, you know, White's pawn structure is slightly compromised. I wouldn't mind White's game if he hadn't played this terrible move G4. G4 opening up his king. Keep the pawn on G3, do nothing. But Larsen feels he ought to be going somewhere. Hence G4. I start to prefer Black's pawns here. Whose pieces are more active? Very difficult to say, because Black is poised, waiting to strike. White's pieces appear nominally more active. But I don't know, if White tries to do something, Black can react. Unclear. And who would have the better position after the exchange of queens? Well, again, that's very unclear. Not clear at all. Possibly White, but there's no danger of the queens coming off just yet. So overall, very unclear game. Of the factors I've described, possibly the fact that White's king is slightly shaky gives Black, if anyone, the edge here. Now let's just see what happens. White plays Queen G3, trying to justify that move G4. Black just continues his patient manoeuvring, improving the position of the knight. The knight comes up into a nice position, observing the E4 pawn. White doesn't see anything to do at the moment. And then suddenly, E5. Black goes active. He turns defence into attack in the speediest possible manner. In fact, Suber was just waiting for White to put his pieces on the wrong squares. And now look what happens. Firstly, White's driven backwards. Then comes B5, breaking up the bind. White takes on B5, and now a very strong move indeed. Knight C takes E4. Now, take a look around the position. White's knights on the C file. Do they look very comfortable? They do not look comfortable to me. And the rook on C8 is about to come into the game. Larsen took on E4. Suber took back. queen came across to d3 to shore up the defences. Knight came to c5, queen to d6, and now rook ed8. And what a sudden end to the game. The white queen is skewered against the rook on d1. White had to resign. Clearly, Larsen wasn't comfortable with Suma's pawn structure. He misplaced his pieces and black struck. Keeping your position flexible is recommended.